commercial breaks and during some of the awards, which are not as sexy. Hopefully we won't miss anything that trends on Twitter and we missed it. But ultimately, we're just going to keep this as an Oscar salon in which we're having a conversation about these themes that are coming out of the Oscars and why they're relevant. So hopefully you guys will engage with this. I kind of branded this as TED Talks meets the Oscars, right? So the first one out of the box I wanted to go to was someone in politics. So this is Sarah Riggs Amico. This is my first time meeting you tonight, but we have a mutual friend in Denise now. And I was just so honored that you would come spend your time with us and kind of give a lens of not only politics but gender also as we go into this. And so just a little intro about yourself maybe, and then we'll just kind of have a conversation.
Sure, Brian, thanks so much. I'm Sarah Riggs Amico. I am so grateful to be here tonight. I am currently a candidate for the United States Senate here in Georgia. I had the incredible honor in 2018 to be the Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor in Georgia. And although we came up a little bit short, I did get more votes than any Democrat in history in our state running for that office. Yeah, so it's an incredible experience. I spent about 8 years in the film and television industry, so the Oscars is sort of like my Super Bowl, and to be able to talk about the intersection of gender and politics in an Oscars event, this is literally nirvana for me. So I live in West Cobb County, Georgia. I'm up in Marietta. I have 2 little daughters, 7 and 9, who hopefully will not be staying up too late. Grandpa is putting them to bed. I am married to a lovely immigrant from Italy, so we never lack for fabulous pasta in our home. And one of the things I love most about running for office, I've been a business owner and executive for about 17 years, finished my MBA at the Harvard Business School in 2003. And one of the things I love about moving into the political world is I've gotten to travel to about 150 of Georgia's 159 counties in the last couple of years. Every corner of our state, frequently with our daughters and my husband in tow, and we have seen the incredible depth of compassion and kindness in this state and its people. We've also seen a lot of the challenges, the stuff that sometimes in the metro Atlanta area, it's easy for folks to ignore. People who are poor because they're sick, or sick simply because they're poor and can't afford the care they need. Parents who are worried about students trapped in struggling schools. So I think the film that we're going to talk about tonight, Jojo Rabbit, there are so many things we could pull out of this movie, but I really responded to it first and foremost as a mother. It's a story of a young boy who's just entered the Hitler Youth Program. He has an imaginary friend, which is actually Adolf Hitler. It is a satire, if you're wondering. It is an incredibly odd thing to do a satire about. But he discovers that not only is his mother part of the resistance, but that she is actually hiding a young Jewish woman with a very special connection to their family in their home. And it's sort of the struggle as we talk about to what and to whom do we give our devotion. Yeah. It's the struggle between this little boy who simply idolizes his mother and loves her with all his heart, but the divergence between what he believes about the world in Nazi Germany versus what he comes to see through the eyes of these 2 women in the film, the Jewish girl hiding in their home and his mother.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's such to me it's like, straight on as far as this idea of devotion, the idea of here he's tested with, I'm going to be, he's this good Hitler's youth, with Hitler as his best friend, and then all of a sudden he finds the Jewish girl, and he realizes if he turns her in, then he turns his mom in, and she gets in trouble. So, devotion being tested. Now, obviously, I wanted you to look through the lens of politics, because you can speak from that, as well as a woman. Not only as a woman in politics, but as a woman also. And so, tell me why, the question I'm going to ask all night long is, why from your lens, where you sit, right? Why do you think that the idea of us needing, in the midst of war, which all these movies kind of thematically are about battle and war and such, for the sake of our children, why do you think we need to test our devotions this year specifically, election year maybe, and see if we can be our brother's keeper?
Yeah, look, I think it's something where we're all going to be forced to do a little bit of triage this year on what it is that we really believe. I had the incredible blessing this morning to worship at Beulah Baptist Church. It's a predominantly African American Baptist church in Atlanta. And one of the deacons who came up at the beginning of the service told a story. It was just a funny story, that he told, but I think it's so relevant. It's like God wanted me to hear that story for tonight. He was talking about his mother-in-law who threw a bunch of watermelon seeds one spring into the canal behind their house in Louisiana. And a year later, they were sort of, amused and at the same time in wonder that there were all these watermelons sprouting up in the canal behind their house. And I sort of think of this question of devotion as a little bit like those watermelon seeds. You may not think it's a big deal right now to support somebody who can't tell fact from fiction. You may not think it's a big deal right now to support someone who others, somebody who looks, loves, lives, prays differently than you do. You may think that it's okay to do all of those things because you have a higher issue to which you want to give your devotion. Maybe it's a particular political issue, for example. But I'll tell you right now, every one of those little things is just like those watermelon seeds. You may think it's something you're simply throwing out the back door that's small, but I can tell you in time for our kids, it will grow into something else entirely. And so the reason that this film spoke to me so specifically in this election year, and look, I'm a Democrat, I'll be totally clear, but I'm not a lifelong Democrat. It was the healthcare debate that made me a Democrat. I grew up in a place where I don't know that I met a Democrat other than my grandmother's my entire childhood. But these issues are important. It is important that we look at the entirety of what people say and do and believe when they want to represent us. It is important that we understand that every small decision we make or that the leaders we support makes ultimately reflects back on the content and character of this nation. And I think after watching the Senate trial, regardless of what you thought the outcome should be, there aren't a lot of trials, guys, that don't have witnesses and evidence. And it was really hard to watch, and I worry that we're tossing something out the back door that's a small, bit of refuse, but we'll come back later and find it's grown into something else entirely.
Yeah, and just to disclaim, I know that, when I invited you, knowing you were a Democrat, I wasn't trying to bait the room to say, oh, this is, the candidate of choice, let's nominate her now. More than just to have someone who could speak from a person who's in this position right now.
Yeah, and how do you filter those things that are coming at you, right? Because the machinery, I'm new to politics, but I've been a mom for over 9 years. And it is cumulative, right? The machinery of politics is designed to push people to where we can neatly fit them in sort of very distinct and discrete boxes, right? But the reality is humans are much more complex and beautiful than that. And so what I worry about is too often we have these purity tests on both ends of the spectrum. Too often we have the tendency to box people into something that's other or different than we are. And as somebody who doesn't come from politics, it's stunning when you actually get in the arena and start running for office, what the gravitational pull towards those sort of boxes really is. But again, the benefit of having traveled all over the state is I still believe in you guys. Whether or not you're with me, I'm with you. I understand that there are still good people who want to believe honest folks still want to go do these jobs. And so the thing that I can do is just tell you my heart and tell you what I've seen and center the stories of other people, talk about why I think it's important to love your neighbor or care for the least of these, and then I trust your judgment. And it really is that simple. That's why. It's not, whether or not I'm ultimately your candidate, I don't think was the point of tonight, right? This was, what does it look like to be in that seat in a year where we're all going to be forced? I've never met anybody who agrees with me 100% of the time, by the way. I'm married. I do not agree with him probably even half that. And we still get along okay, right? He's back there laughing and sort of making an awkward face right now. But the reality is nobody's going to match your purity test, guys. This is about the conscience of a country. It's about the character that we model for our kids. And just like Scarlett Johansson's character in the movie, one of the things that really affected me the most is in the beginning of the movie, they're walking through the public square and they have the resistance people who've been caught who are hanging from the gallows, right? And it's stunning because up until that point, the movie really is a satire, right? And then all of a sudden, you're actually in Hitler's Germany. And the little boy, who gives this fabulous performance, by the way, Taika Waititi, I think, is gifted in that department. But he says, "Mom, what did they do?" And she looks at him and she says, "What they could." I mean, gosh, guys, every one of you is going to be asked that by either your child or grandchild or your neighbor sometime soon. They're going to want to know what you did when people started thinking facts are fungible, or when the planet, was in duress.
Right.
And so for me, it's do what you can.
That's good. Well, that's just sort of what tonight's going to be like. It's a little bit of a TED Talk, a little bit of a look in this lens, and then we're going to rejoin the Oscars. I tell you what, Stephen, tell us where we are right now when we rejoin.
Yes, we just, Toy Story 4 just won animated.
Okay.
Something called Air Love won animated short.
All right, coming back to the Oscars.
2 for 2 on that one
Thank
for
you,
me.
Sarah.
Thank you, guys.